This is my 2016 Volkswagen Scirocco and it is broken again. Essentially what has happened is a coolant temperature sensor has went down on the car. However, I thought I'd take this time to basically carry out a lot of maintenance that I wanted to do to this car anyway. The notorious external water pump thing that I go on about a few times, I do actually take this off, but this time it was alright. I wanted to replace my oil cooler as well, what runs off the water pump, so then I'll have to take the water pump off to get to it, if that makes sense. Basically, in this entire video, it's not a very long video because I've already cut it all up. I basically show you how I diagnosed the faults with the diagnostics machine and actually replaced everything, including the oil cooler, the inlet manifold, the water pump, the temperature sensor, how to actually change all this stuff as well, and also cleaned out my valves as well. So fortunately for me, on my steering wheel it actually tells me the coolant temperature anyway, and as you see it's -39. The engine light is also on. The coolant temperature is reading -39 and the fans was constantly on because the car didn't know how warm the temperature was. So then I plugged it in with the diagnostics machine. I have to find the OBD port. On VWs I'm always in a great spot, them underneath the just above your pedals. Plug that in, turn on the computer, and then we can actually get to diagnosing the car. So I always still have to find the car first. This computer is really good. It does everything for you, literally. As long as you tell it, it's perfect. As you can see, coolant temperature sensor 1, circuit high. The other 3 is because I already started disconnecting the sensors. Them 3 I'm fine, but that was the one I was looking for. As you can see, we need to take off the inlet. We have to disconnect that the injector rail with the 2 T25s, no T30s. I think there was T30s to be honest. And then there is 10 T30s holding in the actual inlets there. You can see the oil cooler sort of, it's very hidden away. You can't really get to it without taking all this off. Disconnect all the wires holding in the actual inlet manifold. There is quite a few, and there's a few hidden, to be fair. A lot of fuel as well. Essentially, because this is an 8-port injection, you have 4 direct injections and you have 4 port directions. 4 of them are actually in the inlet, so make sure all the sensors are disconnected for that as well. You don't want to start just yanking everything. This, when it's ready to come out, it kind of just comes out all right. To be fair, you know when it's ready. But if you start yanking it and nothing's happening, it definitely means something's got it as well. I generally think there's about 8 or 9 sensors connected to the actual inlet itself. And you need a vast amount of tools as well, because the top ones you can fit like a normal medium-sized Torx in, but for the bottom ones I had to get a 1/4-inch Torx in. And had to do everything by hand as well. You always want to break them by hand as well. And if you're tightening them, you could tighten them up with the air ratchet or the electric ratchet, but always make sure they're tight with your hand afterwards. So as you can see here, I'm still trying to pull away and I can tell someone's still got it. There's a little weird bracket thing as well holding on to it. I don't even know what it is. It's just a bracket that's by the alternator. It's a 30mm spanner and a 10mm underneath. You want to crack the 10mm first and then crack it with the 30mm spanner. It's a big nut, trust me. And I struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled until I realised there's these bolts. You have to remember is when you can whiz them all the way out, but you have to then pull them out as well. Them quite weird bolts. Them like a tapered fit, but them not a tapered fit bolt, if that makes sense. So if you have a magnet, it will make it 10 times easier, believe me. So there you are. As soon as it's out, it's all good. There was one fuel line holding this inlet in as well. And once that is actually disconnected like it is now, it just comes out so much easier. And there you are, it comes out perfectly fine. But anyway, with the inlet out, you can actually see how much room there is now that I can see. You can see the water pump, you can see the oil cooler. Look closely enough, you can actually see the alternators behind the oil cooler, essentially where the camera was set up. It wasn't the best angle, so my apologies for that. So one very important thing you want to do is definitely plug the ports. If something falls in and it sits on the valves and you don't realise, or it falls into the actual engine, you am screwed. This job is about like probably a 4 or 5 hour job, if you know what you're doing. If something falls in, it could turn into a week job, or it could be catastrophic pretty much. But anyway, I started disconnecting the pipes that go onto the water pump, because that has to come off first, and the belt to the water pump. The belt's held on with a cover. This is where it gets a bit fidgety, and if you am doing this job on the floor, it can get quite difficult here because how high up everything is. And the thing with VWs is they didn't actually give you a lot of room to be doing this job. It's quite crazy, because VWs are normally alright to work on, but these, it was very tight, to be fair. The pipes as well can be very stubborn. If you've tried taking off boost and water pipes before, you know how stubborn boost and water pipes actually can be. Then I started disconnecting the actual water pump. The water pump bolts I'm actually taping, they don't come all the way out. I even tried doing it with a magnet. I haven't done a water pump in a year. I've actually sort of forgot how to do one. So in total there is 5 bolts and about 3 pipes holding in the actual water pump, and then there's a rubber bunge thing connecting the water pump and the oil cooler together. Once they're all off, it is a bit struggle because of the little bunge thing. You have to try and pull it out of the bunge, but essentially once, with a bit of persuasion and wiggling it around all the wires, it does come out. Make sure as well to definitely get a bucket underneath and catch all the water, otherwise whatever you're working on is going to be really wet and messy. Essentially I wanted to change the oil cooler because I believe it was letting oil into my coolant. Each time you open the coolant bottle there were just bits of oil sitting in there, but them about 45s, they're very awkward, to be fair. The front two, the ones on the left side, are very easy to get to. However, the two on the right side are a bit of a pain, to be dead honest. You definitely need the right tools as well for these. If you start rounding bolts, it's a nightmare as well. But as you can see, that comes off pretty easy. There's no pipes holding to it because you've already took the pipes off as well. And this was the actual sensor location that I went down, because the main issue about this sensor is the fact that we found up TPS asking for the diagram. They didn't even have the diagram for it online. There's nothing, but we kind of had a rough idea where it was, and then it turned out it to be that one. After everything was stripped, I wanted to change the coolant bottle anyway because it was filthy, and coolant bottles are generally about £20. So for the sake of £20 to make it look nice again, I decided to change it. It's 2 T25 Torxes, 1 sensor, 2 pipes. Really easy. I've had to take this coolant bottle off 1 billion times, and there you go. So that's slightly what I mean about how there's oil mixing in with the coolant. Oh. Oil cooler's off, water pump's off, inlet's off, belt's off. It's half a job. This is it's so long. 1 water pump there, another water pump here, you know, so that's 2. Inlet there, oil cooler here. And we believe actually the issue of leaking oil into the coolant, but generally that is half a day. That is, it's just been non-stop working on this car. Don't make it easy. My mate's coming over now to basically clean the valves because they're full of carbon. I'll show you that quickly. If you can see down there, full of carbon. Mate's coming over now to quickly clean them out. It's now 5:15. Everyone's gone home. I'm on my own. I'm ready for home myself. Christ. Essentially that is pretty much me stripping out everything I needed for the Scirocco. So the inlet, the water pump, the oil cooler and the actual temperature sensor itself was all stripped in this video. If you're doing it on the floor, it can be an absolute horrible job to do. Remember, all sensors definitely need to come off, and when you're putting it on, all sensors need to go back on as well. Otherwise you'll have a Christmas tree on your dashboard. In the next video I'll be putting everything back together with the new parts and showing you how I put it back together. Putting it back together, in my opinion, is a lot harder than taking it all apart, believe me. And also the water pump belt, because it's a stretchy belt, can be absolutely horrible. But pretty much when this car is done, everything should be perfectly fine, even with some brand new cleaned inlet valves. As you can see, they used to be very dirty, full of carbon, and now they're generally beautiful and smooth. And I should stop having coolant oil going into my coolant through the new oil cooler that we'll also install in the next video. But if you are new to the channel, please hit the like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.